take off your glasses or put on your glasses, whatever it is that makes you see better.
Do you live around here?
I live right here in this van with my kitty.
And get ready to line these guys up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna line up this tick here to our zero clearance line. You can see here, okay? And then we wanna line up the same thing over here on this end. We wanna line up this tick here to this zero clearance line. Okay, so that needs to be lined up, and this needs to be lined up. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna raise the blade. It's gonna come up at 12 degrees. We're gonna have our height set to the height that we want. And then we are gonna push this forward, okay, and then pull it back, and then we're gonna slide this over. And then we're gonna push it forward, and slide it back, and then we're gonna slide this over. So that's essentially what we're doing. I'm gonna get this lined up and show you what it looks like. The reason I leave it open and I don't do hard stop in both directions is because a lot of times when you're milling your wood, sometimes you might not be able to get the same thickness every time because of defects in the wood, knots, whatever it may be. You might end up a little bit thinner, or maybe like you accidentally cranked a little bit too far on your planer and you went a little too far, whatever that may be. So I don't put a hard stop on the other end, so you can just stop when you are at your finished thickness. So let me show you guys what I just did here. I lined up my ticks with the edge of my 12 degree mark there. Okay, and then what I did after that was I had Yunkin hold this down for me, and then I put in these cleats. I put 2 here, nice and tight, and I put 1 here. The reason I did it that way is because I wanted to be able to set this in here. You can see my drawing there. I did a little pencil mark. I want to be able to set this in here, clip it in, and I want to be able to just give it a little tap tap.
Just tap it in.
Just tap it in. Just tap it in. Give it a little tappy. Tap, tap, tap-a-roo.
And then it's wedged in right there. So in addition to this wedging in right there, I can use this clamp that I strategically placed in this location.
Did you just see that Oh boy!
And I can clamp this down just for a little added security. That's this. I did that on both of these legs. We are cutting the inside of the legs, so make sure that you have the correct orientation going on. I made this sled big enough so that I can cut both of these in one pass.
Then in here, 2 shots of vodka.
What the fuck?
And so what we are going to do now, if this, we'll call this my y-axis. If my y-axis is all the way closed at a stop, that's my top of my cut. That's the top of my angled dado. If I want to go to the bottom of my angled dado, I need to know the thickness of my seat. And then I'm going to slide over my y-axis a little bit at a time, and I'm going to go forward. And then I'm going to slide it over a little bit more, and I'm going to go forward with my x. So we're going to do little y-axis, little x-axis. Last thing that I need to talk about here is setting our depth from the edge here. So I'm going to use my midget cricket, and I'm going to set, I'm sorry, not 3/8, 5/8. So I'm going to set that 5/8 from the bottom. So what I want to do, instead of taking this all out, because I already have it in here, I want to be 5/8 from the bottom face in, not from the top face down. So I have this set for 5/8. I'm going to mark it here. You see it there? And I'm going to reset this to match that line right there. Then I'm going to tighten that down. Then I'm going to take my marking gauge and I'm going to use this to get a depth that I want. Tighten both of these down. Noisy cricket goes back away. Benny likes to call this the crucifix. Then I'm going to drop this down here and I'm going to give myself a mark. And the reason I want that mark there I'm sorry, the pencil mark that I have in there is probably making it hard to see. I'll do one out here as well. The reason I want that mark there is so that when my cut comes up, when I'm raising my blade, I want to know when to stop. And so I'm going to stop as soon as my blade hits that mark. That's it. That's what we want. So this is like, I can't quite get it on straight.
This can go in this box with all the other stuff and all the other stuff, you know. Here.
Check this side. Okay, now that we have our front legs and we have our rear legs, we're going to round them over. And there's a couple spots that are really important that you do not round over. And I'll show you where those are at right now. And I'm using a 1/4 inch roundover bit. You can use whatever size roundover bit that you want. Or you can just skip this step and sand it by hand if you'd like. It's not absolutely crucial. It just speeds up my process a little bit. So when you round this over, you want to avoid anything that is going to be a joint. So for example, this is going to be a joint, so don't round over into here, don't round over into here. So when you're routing, you can start on the end and then you want to stop before you get there. And then you want to start in here and then you can go out to the tip. The other thing that is really important is the backrest is going to attach. So this is the inner part of the leg. You can tell it's the inner part of the leg because the angled mortise is right here. The angled dado, however you want to call it. The backrest is going to attach like this. So if you put your backrest here, flush it up with the top, and give yourself a mark, you do not want to round over any of this section on the inside of the leg. So don't get crazy and come too close to this. I would just start here with the router and end here. Or you could just not route this section at all. But we'll do this later and we'll do this later. So those are the areas that you need to be careful about. Okay, that's for the rear leg. On the front leg, you're going to be attaching to the seat. This is going to get cut at a bit of an angle here, and then you're going to attach to the seat. So you don't want to round over anything up here. None of this gets rounded over. And really, you should just to be safe, come down about 1.5 inches from the top and then stop routing there. And you can do the same thing here, just to be safe. And then so you can route this side, this side, this side, and this side, and get yourself a nice round over, but make sure you stop short of any joinery. And that's it. Let's do it. So we got rounded all the way here. And we stopped. We stopped here. We stopped here. We just did this little section, and we left all of this a hard edge because that's where the backrest is going to go. Okay, so we have rounded, 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 but we stopped short here. We stopped short here. Okay, now that we have our roundovers on our front legs, we're going to cut our 12-degree angles in them. The reason they're 12 degrees is because when we did the seat, if you remember, we cut a 6-degree in this and a 6-degree in this, a 6-degree in this and a 6-degree in this. So when those two 6 degrees go together, it makes a 12-degree angle. So that means that we have to cut a 12-degree angle in the front legs so that it matches up with the bottom of the front of the seat. So now you have to be really careful when you do this I've lumber myself a few times. You can't just go rogue and cut however the hell you want. This has to be done on the right side. So what I do is I label these, and so this one says right leg and it says front. The way that I determine what the right leg is, I imagine that I'm sitting in the seat. So if you're sitting in the chair, whenever I say right, I'm talking about that side. I know that this leg goes on the right side of the seat, which is here. And so if you imagine this with the 12-degree angle cut, it would be sitting like that. If you notice, the front of the leg should be straight. If you have it on wrong, it's going to angle backwards, which we don't want. So that's how you can determine which leg goes where. So we are putting this here, then we can tell that it's straight. This is the front, this is the grain that I want, this is the leg that I want to use for my right. So I write right leg on it, and then I write front on here so I don't get these mixed up and I don't get twisted later when I'm making my cuts. And furthermore, I then make a mark in my leg that represents the angle of which I am going to be cutting. So I need to make a 12-degree cut, and I want it to be from the tip here, and I want it to go in this direction. You can see my pencil mark there. And that again helps me not accidentally cut the wrong side. So do the same thing with the left. I have left written and I have front written. And again, I made a mark to represent the angle that I'm going to be cutting out of here. Okay, so let's go make these cuts. We have our legs marked. We're going to cut 12 degrees, and there's a few different ways you can do that. You can do it on the miter saw, which I've done a lot in the past. Just make sure that the miter saw is really dialed in and all your angles are perfect. Or you can do it on a sled, which is what we're going to do. There's no right or wrong answer. Just do it whatever you have access to. And that's the way you should do it. But it is important that when you cut these angles, you see I need to cut this angle, this 12-degree angle here, and my blade on my table saw only turns this way. So because of that, I need to make sure that I have all my legs placed in the right spots. So what I did was I pre-drilled some holes in here. There's one there and one there. And I back these screws out just as much as I need until my zero clearance line matches up with the top of my leg. I already got this one dialed in. All I did was back that out and screwed that one all the way in. And now I know that this is good. This is exactly where I want it to cut. It's about a half a degree out of a 90, and it's going to be cutting. And this table saw only tilts right, and that is going to be a correct cut for me. This table saw is going to tilt right, and I'm going to be able to cut that angle that I need. And when this is flat up against here, you can see that when it's flat up against here, you can watch the front of my leg line up with that zero clearance line. That's why I like to use the table saw for this. It's easier for me to be accurate. The miter saw just takes a little bit more time getting it set up, and it's just a little bit harder to get accuracy out of the miter saw. So we're gonna cut the right leg like that.
Look, I'll have your leg. Right. Right, I'll do you for that. You what? Come here. What are you gonna do?
I have my angle set at 12 degrees on my table saw, so I'm just going to line that up and I'm going to push it through. And the goal is to get all of this material removed without taking anything off of the tip. That's what we're trying to do. And for the left leg, I can't just send this one through because this way is about 90.5 degrees, and this way is 83.3 degrees. So in order for me to make this cut on here against this fence, I'd have to turn it this direction, and you can see that it's way out, and we can't have that. So what I'm going to do for this leg is I'm going to screw that screw all the way in, and then I'm going to line this up till it meets my zero clearance, and then I'm actually going to put a clamp right here, and that clamp will hold this in place. We'll do that in a second. Want it. This is right where I want it. I got a screw on here. Now that we have the angles cut into our front legs, we are going to put them on the seat, and we're going to mark out where our dominoes are going to go. Before I had this workbench, I used to attach it to a table like this. I would push this against there, and then I'd run a clamp here and run a clamp in the back. So if you don't have a workbench, just do it that way. But you do want to get this vertical so you can accurately bore these holes with the domino. So I'm going to put it in here because I have this. Okay, so now that we have these angles marked, we're going to use our domino and we're going to do loose tenons is what they're called. We're going to mortise holes into the front leg and the seats, and then we are going to put dominoes. We're going to use a 10 millimeter cutter head, and we're going to use 1050 dominoes. Make sure that this is set at a 90. Don't subtract your 12 degrees. You want this at a 90. And then we are going to make sure that this is at 25 or 28. Either one would be fine. We're going to make sure that this is on the smallest setting. And then we need to set our height of our fence to half the thickness of the leg, the front leg. So I'm going to do that now. And then once that's done, I'm going to keep those settings, and I'm going to line up my mark with this, plunge in, and then I'm going to move on to the seat. So the domino is all set up. Now it is very important that you do this correctly because it is not a normal side grain to side grain joint that's 90 to 90. This has a little bit different of a setup. We actually need this on 25 or we actually need this on 28. I know earlier I said 25 or 28 would be fine, but we actually do need this on 28. And when you put this on here, the most important thing, remember this fence is at 90. You need to keep this fence here needs to be flat against the top of your leg, the top of the leg, just like that. Okay, and then you can see that it's going to be kind of plunging into the air right there. Do my best to kind of show you what I mean. You do not want to try to do this. That is incorrect. You want to do this. Okay, so make sure that this fence is flat on here. Make sure your lines are lined up, and then fire it up. Okay, so now we're going to do the mortises with the domino machine on the same settings as we did the front legs, but now we're going to do the front of the seat. Again, it's important to keep this flat part of your fence flat up against this surface here. You don't want to try to match any angles. You need to make sure that the fence is flat on here, and then that your bottom fence, this part, is flat up against this. So you'll see what I mean. So first and foremost, this needs to be flat. You can see it, I'll slide it forward, and then that needs to be flat. See how it started at an angle, and then I went until it stopped? That's what I need to look like. Now I need to find my lines right there. I'm going to turn it on. Okay, so now we're going to do a dry fit. We just mortised out our front legs and the front of the seat. Now I'm going to put some dominoes in here, and we're going to do a dry fit. What I like to do, some of these fit really nice, but some of them swell up and don't fit so great. So the ones that are like that, I like to shave them off. So I just get a knife and I do this. Don't cut your finger. Just be careful. It's like shaving an apple or something. Last thing you want to do is yourself. You know, that's a little too tight. I don't want them to fit that tight because we are going to have to do a few dry fits. We want to be able to get the domino out. So I'm going to just give it a little shave. So it still fits tight, but it's a little bit more loose. That one's good.